Hi everyone, my name is Om Vaiti and I'm a Principal Program Manager on the Office 365 engineering team, and I lead the development of Service Trust Portal and Compliance Manager.
Hi, I'm Scott Schnall, a Senior Program Manager on the Office 365 Customer Experience team, and I led the development of the Microsoft Information and Customer Guidance in Compliance Manager. In this video, we're going to cover the key capabilities of Compliance Manager, how we calculate compliance score, and then show you a demo of the product. After this session, you'll know how to use Compliance Manager to simplify and streamline your regulatory compliance processes.
Let's start with the pain points in this area. As we discussed in the first video in this series, the overall compliance journey is a process that starts with understanding regulations and continues through to demonstrating compliance to auditors. There are 3 pain points we would like to highlight here. According to research, there are more than 200 updates from 750 regulatory bodies every day. It's such a big burden on compliance professionals to stay up to date for all these changes. And even when they can track all these changes, sometimes they don't have enough knowledge to define internal controls and meet these requirements. Based on the research, 65% of companies think design and implement internal controls as one of the biggest hurdles to achieve GDPR and other regulatory compliance. Most of the times, compliance officers and privacy officers know the regulations and standards well, but they don't know which technology solutions can help them to meet the requirements. On the other hand, IT professionals know about the technology. They know how to use features like data loss prevention and e-discovery, but they don't know how to go about with managing those features and regulations. So there is also lack of connection between the compliance and IT departments. The last pain point I want to highlight here is that the companies are spending a lot of time creating and amending reports to demonstrate their compliance posture to their auditors. From the research, we see that more than 30% of companies spend more than 4 hours a week to work on reporting. It is very time consuming.
Yeah, we've spoken with a lot of customers at length about these challenges. And in response, we've released a Microsoft Cloud solution to help organizations simplify their compliance journey. And it's called Compliance Manager. Compliance Manager is now available for Azure, Dynamics 365, and Office 365 Business and Enterprise subscribers. It enables organizations to manage their compliance activities in one place and provides 3 key capabilities. The first is ongoing risk assessment. With a single dashboard, organizations can see multiple assessments and measure the compliance performance for a cloud service against a regulation or standard. Now, since the cloud uses a shared responsibility model, we show you the control implementation progress for both Microsoft and the customer. For each assessment, you also get a compliance score. Tell us more about how we calculate the compliance score.
Sure, the compliance score is a risk-based score. It is assigned based on the level of risk involved due to a non-compliance or control failure. For each of the controls within an assessment, we assign a score between 1 to 10 based on the essence of control, the level of risk under various kinds of threat, and whether there is an external driver for that control. The overall compliance score for an assessment is the accumulation of possible points for each control in the assessment. The compliance score consists of the number of points that you receive by implementing customer managed controls out of total number of possible points if all managed controls in an assessment are implemented. Note that all possible points for the Microsoft managed controls are already applied to the compliance score because those controls have been both implemented and independently tested for all Microsoft Cloud services. For the first part, essence of the control, we characterize each control in 6 types based on whether it is mandatory or discretionary and whether it is preventative, detective, or corrective control. Mandatory controls are the controls that users can't bypass. For example, once we design a password policy, users need to follow the policy and can't ignore it. Discretionary control, on the other hand, are those which rely on users to be accountable. For instance, companies can encourage employees to lock their screens when they are not at their desk or not in front of their laptop, but users can bypass the control if they don't pay enough attention to this control. For the other dimension of essence of control, we categorize each control by whether it prevents, detects, or corrects failures or incidences. For example, Protecting information at the rest with encryption is a preventative control to protect data from attackers and breach. Information system monitoring is a detective control to monitor the system. Privacy incident response is a corrective control to recover the system back to the operational state after impacts. We categorize each of controls into 6 categories and assign the level of risk based on the table on the right-hand side that you see here. For the second part of the score, we assign the level of risk based on the related threat for each control. Threats can affect 3 things in our system: the confidentiality of information stored in the system, the integrity of information, and finally, the availability of the network or the service. There are 4 kinds of threats: a malicious threat initiated by internal employees, or an accidental threat by internal employee actions, or malicious threats initiated by external attackers, and threats caused by accidental actions taken by external users or customers. We assign a level of risk to each threat scenario for each control due to either a non-compliance or a control failure. The last part of the compliance score is about external drivers. We assign a level of risk based on whether we have a legal obligation, compliance obligation, or a public commitment for the content of each control. This one is more for a Microsoft managed controls. Considering the essence of the control, the threat scenarios, and the effects, as well as external drivers, we calculate a score for each control. The compliance score helps organizations to gain visibility to their compliance performance with a risk-based score, and thus they can prioritize control implementation and better plan to achieve organizational compliance. It will also give them ability to prioritize any control failures, so you can ensure that if you have 10 failures, you will able to prioritize which failures you need to fix first.
Wow, thanks, Om. That was a great discussion of the details of Compliance Score. Next, I'd like to talk about the Actionable Insights within Compliance Manager. This is where Microsoft provides organizations with detailed information about how we've implemented controls under our responsibility and how they were tested by independent third-party auditors. We also provide organizations with recommended actions and step-by-step guidance on how they can implement the controls managed by their organization. Compliance Manager helps organizations build the connections between Microsoft's data protection solutions and the regulatory requirements that matter. These solutions can be found in the Office 365 Security and Compliance Center, the Azure Security Center, and the Windows Defender Security Center, among other places. Now, a primary benefit of Compliance Manager is simplified compliance. We provide organizations with a dashboard with rich information, and we give them tools to assign, track, and record their compliance activities. After implementing controls, organizations can export richly detailed reports of the information and evidence they upload into Compliance Manager, and they can use those reports to demonstrate compliance activities to auditors and regulators. Please remember, though, that Compliance Manager only provides recommendations. Following Microsoft's recommendations is not a guarantee of compliance. But Compliance Manager provides tools and information and enables organizations to perform self-service risk assessments. Organizations are responsible for evaluating and validating their own control implementation.
Thank you, Scott, for introducing the key capabilities of Compliance Manager. To help you better understand how to use Compliance Manager, let's have a look at our demo environment. Okay, so let's talk about how Compliance Manager can really help you. When you come to STP, you click on the menu item Compliance Manager, and when you come here, you will see the Compliance Manager dashboard. Now, for these demo purposes, we are going to have a role play. Om, me, will be a compliance officer, and Scott will be Alan, the IT pro in our organization. And we're going to show you how a compliance officer and Alan, the IT pro, are going to interact with each other and quickly make sure that they can understand what needs to be done for a control, implement that, and then demonstrate compliance of that control very easily in a simplified process. So, Om, as a compliance officer, comes to Compliance Manager dashboard, and he quickly sees there are 3 default Compliance Manager assessment tiles created for Office 365 and 2 default Compliance Manager assessment tiles as created for Azure. You will quickly see that these tiles for Office 365 GDPR Office 365 NIST 853, and Office 365 ISO 27001 2013 already has score assigned to it. And this score is coming from Microsoft Managed Actions, already implemented and tested by third-party independent auditors by Microsoft. So for example, for GDPR, Microsoft has already taken care of 48 out of 48 actions that Microsoft is responsible for in the joint responsibility model that we talked about. And customers are responsible for 61 actions, and me as a compliance officer will able to understand what those actions are. In NIST, you would see that Microsoft has taken care of 760 out of 760 actions that it is owned by Microsoft. And only 215 actions need to be taken care by me as a compliance officer, or Scott or Alan as a IT pro. And same thing for ISO 27001. Now, let's look at the example of how you as a compliance officer can create new assessment. So you go to Add Assessment tab, and over here you have choice to use existing group, or you have choice to create a new group. So here we are going to create new group called 2018 Assessment US. Once I create new group, I basically gets option, are you sure want to copy of data from existing group? I can choose to get the copy from existing group, which is default group, or not. In this case, I'm going to choose to get the copy of data. If there were any controls tested, that control implementation detail and test plan and management response would be copied to the new group as well as a one-time activity. Here, I'm going to select default group from copy to, and then I'm going to hit next. Now I'm going to create new assessment for Office 365. And for Office 365, we currently have choices of all these data protection standards and regulatory compliance standards. I'm going to select HIPAA, and I'm going to select Add to Dashboard. Now, if you will see, immediately Compliance Manager creates an assessment tile under the group that you have defined for Office 365 HIPAA. And as you see in this, for this standard, 65 actions have already been taken care by Microsoft, and the score showing the risk-based score that is occurred to because Microsoft has already taken actions for you. And you also see that there are 36 actions that you need to take. So that's how you can create new assessments. You can use the group functionality within Compliance Manager. And this functionality you can use for various different ways. You can use it for creating different groups for different business unit that your organization may have, or you can create different groups for year-on-year assessment that will do for a particular standard. So use the groups functionality, which is very flexible, as suits to your organizational needs. Now, we are going to take example of Office 365 GDPR assessment tile and kind of walk you through how you can use the Compliance Manager assessment. So when I click Office 365 GDPR, I get to see in-scope cloud services which are compliant with GDPR. And you will see the list varying if you choose various different assessment. For example, NIST 853, you will see a different list of a particular cloud services that are compliant with NIST 853 data protection standard. So this gives you a quick list of all the services that are compliant with GDPR. Now, the next, you are able to see all the controls that has Microsoft implemented and tested. So for example, if you go to the data protection by design and by default control area, you will see that there are various different controls that are kind of defined here. And you will able to see the implementation details for that control, and you will also see the test plan for that particular control. And this is the exact implementation detail that was shared to our third-party independent auditors, and this is the exact test plan that was tested by our third-party independent auditors. And since in some cases the tests go in detail, you will able to click on read more and see all the details around how the third-party independent auditor tested this control. And then you will also able to see the test result, when that test was performed, who that test was performed by. And this detail is used for me as a privacy or compliance officer to perform a risk assessment on Microsoft's cloud, in this case, Office 365. I'm getting full transparency and details around how all the controls that are Microsoft responsibility are implemented and tested by third-party independent auditors. So that's about Microsoft managed controls. Then, more importantly, we have started sharing customer managed controls. These controls are your responsibility in a joint responsibility model. And not only we are telling you what those controls are and which areas those controls are, but we are going to show you for each of those controls what exact actions you can take and what different Microsoft Cloud features that you can use to implement and be compliant with those controls and the requirements. So for example, I'm going to take control 6.10.1.2, which is about securing application services on the public networks. And this control maps to Article 32.1a and Article 5.1f of GDPR requirements. And what you're going to see here is that even though this control maps to these articles, the actions that you take for this control also gives you ability to satisfy requirement for ISO 27001, ISO 27018, HIPAA, NIST 800-171, and NIST 853. So based on our internal workings and the research that we have done over the years, we can create these mappings by which we are reducing the amount of work that you need to do across all of these standards. So even if you are at this point working to satisfy one particular GDPR control, you are able to satisfy a bunch of other controls across these various data protection and regulatory compliance standards. So now, I know what control it is. I know which GDPR articles it mapped to. If I click on the more here, I will able to get a detailed customer actions. And as a compliance officer or privacy officer, I am able to go through the actual detailed customer actions of what my organization needs to do to satisfy these control requirements. And in the customer actions, we have two distinct categories. There are some actions which are procedural, and we have highlighted that here. And then some actions which are technical configuration and the actions that you take by using various Microsoft Cloud features, we have highlighted that here. And what we are trying to do here is that we are connecting the dots between various Microsoft Cloud features that we have made available to you and how using that features you will able to satisfy a regulatory requirement. So as a compliance officer, I am able to see this, and now I understand that I have Alan in my organization who can actually go and use these features and configure those features. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to assign button, and I'm going to assign this control to Alan. And I'm going to assign a priority. In this case, I'm going to assign medium priority, and I'm going to add my notes saying that please implement this control and provide the evidence. And once I do that and I hit assign button, the email is sent to Alan, and he is able to understand what actions that he need to take. Now, so what we're going to do is that now we are going to go and see what email Alan has received and what actions Alan is going to take.
Let's have a look at Alan's mailbox now. So as you can see, Alan has received the message that was sent to him through the Compliance Manager tool when OM assigned the task to him. Through the email, Alan has the ability to click on View Action Item assigned to you. And when he clicks on that, that takes him immediately to the Action Items dashboard for him inside Compliance Manager. And as you saw here, Compliance Manager requires authentication, and so Alan has authenticated using his Azure Active Directory account. Now, once in the Action Items dashboard, Alan gets a list of all of the controls that have been assigned to him. In this case, there's several controls. Now, you only saw OM assign one control to Alan, but as OM mentioned, that one control is mapped to several other controls. And although Alan only has one task to do, once that task has been completed and the work has been verified, all of the mapped controls will show that they've been completed, and the compliance score will reflect that they've been scored as a result of those actions. Now, what Alan can do is he can look at the information. Again, we can focus in on just the one control that he was actually directly assigned by OHM. That would be the GDPR control for 6.10.1.2. Alan has full access to those customer actions that OHM mentioned before, and he can see not only what the responsibility is for the organization, but what Microsoft recommends that they do to fulfill their responsibility, and what are the step-by-step instructions that are required for Alan to do those things. And those things, as OHM said, could vary from anything to implementing and reviewing business policies to implementing and configuring technology features within our cloud. Once Alan has digested the customer actions and actually gone and completed the work, he can go into the implementation details field and enter in the details of what he did. So as an example, this action required Alan to review the organization's data handling standards policy and standard operating procedures and verify that it documents the organization's requirements for encrypting personal data that they store. So Alan can enter his information in the implementation details, and that could be anything. It's up to each customer to determine how they want to include their implementation details. Using Microsoft's approach as an example, what we would do is typically enter something that said, now, this is just the implementation details. What Alan also needs to do is come up with a way to test this. And so in this case, it's a pretty simple thing to do because all we need to do is, and again, you can be as brief or as verbose as you like. Now, once Alan has implemented the control, he'll go ahead and change the status, which was changed from not implemented to planned when OHM assigned it to Alan. Alan can now change that status from planned to implemented, and he can enter the data on which it was implemented. Now, you recall the instructions for the customer actions, and as part of the test plan, it requires someone to review the data handling policy and verify that, in fact, in Section 3 in those pages, it includes that information. So to do that, I can simply click on Manage Documents. I can then click Upload, choose the policy document that I want, or perhaps I'm uploading a screenshot, or maybe a group policy export, or some other configuration settings. But again, I have the ability to upload documents, and any documents that I do upload are restricted to only authorized users of Compliance Manager. Once I have the document uploaded, at that point, that's all the work that Alan needs to do. So now he can reassign the task back to the compliance officer to verify the implementation of that control and mark it as either passed or failed. So I can go into Reassign. I'm going to type in OHM's name. And again, I can select a priority. That's very useful when you're assigning multiple tasks to the same individuals and you want to give them a heads up as to which ones are more important to implement first. Again, I'm going to allow the default of sending email notification, and then I can include, again, one more note. You can see the note that OHM put in here is still in here, and I can simply erase that note and enter in my own note, which could be OHM, I implemented the control. Please verify using the test plan information. Once I'm done with that, I can click on Assign. And now that task has now been assigned back to OHM. And you'll see here in a moment that task will disappear from my action items because it's no longer assigned to me.
So now Alan has assigned that task by doing needful and uploading the evidence back to me as a compliance officer. So I can go in my action items and see what are the various actions assigned to me. Now again, you will recall that there is only one control, but since it is related to various different controls, I'm showing all these controls assigned to me. But if I go to my GDPR tab, I see that, okay, this is the control that are assigned to me, and I'm able to go and look at what was the implementation detail that was entered by Alan, and then what was the test plan and management response that he entered. And I'm also able to go into manage documents and see the actual document evidence that Alan has uploaded. And after satisfactory review, I'm able to come here and assign a test date and select a test result. And in this case, I'm going to say it's passed. And once I say it's passed, now I can go, and if I see my assessment dashboard, you will see that not only the GDPR control that we actioned upon was satisfied, but a NIST control was also satisfied by taking the same customer actions, and 3 ISO controls now that are satisfied by taking same customer actions. So if you see here, our ability to map these controls and map customer actions that are supporting the controls across various data protection and regulatory standards is helping you to do minimum work that you need to do, but then get the benefit of occurring that work across the various controls that we have here. Now, what we do is that you are able to go and export all the things that you have done, and also in that report you will see what Microsoft has done for a particular standard. So let's assume that you as a customer has taken care of all the 61 controls that are your responsibility, and Microsoft has taken care of all the controls that are Microsoft's responsibility. Now you are able to export this report, which will be directly showing you all the details around Microsoft managed controls, implementation details as well as test plans, and customer managed controls detail. Again, implemented details and test plans as you entered them, and the links to the evidence that you have uploaded from one single report. Now you are able to take that report and give it to your external or internal auditors or regulators to demonstrate end-to-end compliance on top of Microsoft Cloud. So that's what we wanted to demo it together for your view.
In addition to showing you how to use Compliance Manager, we also want to ensure that you understand the permissions model used by Compliance Manager. By default, any user in a cloud tenant can access Compliance Manager. There's no tenant data in Compliance Manager before organizations add implementation details or upload evidence. Compliance Manager doesn't have any connection to the tenant's security configuration, and we don't have the ability to detect things in a tenant's environment. Now, organizations can assign 5 permission roles by clicking Settings. After a user is added to the role, the default permissions are removed, and only users that have been added to a role will be able to access Compliance Manager and perform the actions allowed by that role. Reader has view-only permissions. Contributors can edit all fields except the test result and last test date. Assessors can edit all fields. Administrators can manage assessments, including creating, archiving, and deleting assessments, and portal admins can add users to each role. The Compliance Manager is available today for Azure, Dynamics 365, and Office 365 Business and Enterprise subscribers in our public cloud. It's free for everyone with a Microsoft Enterprise paid or trial subscription, and it features assessments for multiple regulations and standards, including NIST 800-171, NIST 853, the GDPR, ISO 27001, ISO 27018, and HIPAA. We'll be adding more assessments in the future based on feedback.
Thank you for watching. We hope you find this helpful. You can find more resources, including blogs, white papers, supporting documents, and more at the link on this slide.
Thanks for your time.